A 67-year-old woman named Margaret walked into my office 6 months ago with a stack of medication bottles. She'd been doing everything right for years. Morning walks, oatmeal for breakfast, blood pressure checked religiously. Her numbers stayed in that borderline zone that concerned her doctor enough to add a second medication. But here's what nobody told her. The one thing she did every single morning to start her day healthy was systematically destroying the very numbers she worked so hard to control. And she's not alone. The morning habit I'm talking about is considered healthy by millions of seniors. Your doctor probably hasn't mentioned it. The guidelines don't flag it. But I've watched it sabotage blood pressure control in patient after patient. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening and how to fix it starting tomorrow. My name is Dr. Michael Chen. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon with 28 years of experience and more than 2,000 open heart surgeries behind me. I've held beating hearts in my hands. I've seen what uncontrolled blood pressure does to arteries from the inside. Not on a scan, not through a stethoscope, with my own eyes during surgery. And what frustrates me most isn't the damage itself. It's that so much of it traces back to habits patients thought were protecting them. Habits their primary care doctors approved. Habits they read about in health magazines. Margaret's story isn't rare. It's the pattern I see every single week. And the reason it keeps happening is because nobody took the time to explain why the body after 60 doesn't tolerate the same routines it handled perfectly well at 40. Your cardiovascular system at 67 is fundamentally different from what it was at 37. Think of it like an old garden hose. When it's new, it's flexible. It expands when water pressure increases. It contracts when pressure drops. That elasticity is how it handles stress without bursting. But leave that hose in the sun for 20 years and something changes. The rubber stiffens. It loses that give. Now when you turn on the water, it can't expand to absorb the surge. The pressure inside climbs higher because the walls won't flex. That's what happens to your arteries after 60. They stiffen. Medical term is arterial compliance loss. It's not disease. It's aging. But it means your cardiovascular system has far less margin for error than it did when you were younger. And here's the critical part. The things that used to cause a mild temporary blood pressure spike in your 40s now cause a significant sustained spike in your 60s. The same stimulus, different response. And the morning habit I'm about to reveal hits your system at the exact moment when it's most vulnerable to that spike. Now let me tell you what that habit is. Coffee on an empty stomach. Specifically, black coffee consumed within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking up before eating anything solid. And before you think this sounds too simple or too harmless, stay with me. Because what's happening in your body during that first hour of the day is more complex than most people realize. When you wake up, your body releases a surge of cortisol. That's normal. It's your biological alarm clock. Cortisol prepares you to stand, move, think. Part of that preparation involves raising your blood pressure to get oxygen-rich blood to your brain and muscles. Again, perfectly normal. But here's where coffee changes the equation. Caffeine doesn't just wake you up. It triggers your adrenal glands to release even more cortisol and adrenaline on top of what your body already released naturally. And both of those hormones constrict your blood vessels. Tighter vessels mean higher pressure. Now add the empty stomach factor. When there's no food in your digestive system to slow absorption, caffeine hits your bloodstream fast. Peak caffeine levels in your blood occur within 15 to 20 minutes of drinking that first cup. And in arteries that have lost their elasticity, that rapid caffeine spike combined with the morning cortisol surge creates a blood pressure spike that can last 3 to 4 hours. The research backs this up. A study published in the American Journal of Hypertension found that caffeine consumed on an empty stomach raised systolic blood pressure by an average of 8 to 12 points in adults over 60. That's the equivalent of adding stress your body wasn't designed to handle first thing in the morning. And if you're doing this every single day, you're training your cardiovascular system to operate in a chronically elevated state during the hours when most heart attacks and strokes occur, between 6 a.m. and noon. Write that down. Here's what nobody tells you. The medication you're taking to lower your blood pressure works steadily over 24 hours, but it can't compensate for a daily 3-hour spike you're creating yourself. Over time, those daily spikes stress the delicate inner lining of your arteries. That lining is called the endothelium. It's 1 cell thick. When blood pressure spikes repeatedly, it creates shear force against that lining. Micro tears form. Your body repairs them with scar tissue and cholesterol patches. That's how plaque starts, not from eating an egg, from mechanical stress against artery walls. Margaret didn't know any of this. She loved her morning coffee. Black, strong, first thing. But it was also spiking her blood pressure to levels her evening medication couldn't touch. Here's what we did. I didn't tell her to quit coffee. I'm not unrealistic. What I told her was this: eat something first. Anything with protein or fat, a handful of nuts, a hard-boiled egg, a spoonful of peanut butter. Then wait 20 minutes, then have the coffee. The food does two things. It slows caffeine absorption so you don't get that rapid spike, and it blunts the cortisol response because your body registers that you've been fed and dials back the stress hormone output. Within 3 weeks, Margaret's morning blood pressure readings dropped an average of 9 points. She didn't change her medication. She didn't add supplements. She just stopped slamming her system with caffeine and cortisol at the same time on an empty stomach. That's the fix. It costs nothing. It takes 5 extra minutes, and it works. Now this next one surprises people every time. The second morning habit destroying blood pressure is taking your medication first thing with just water. Sounds responsible, right? But most blood pressure medications work better when taken with food. And taking them on an empty stomach can cause a sharper drop than your body can handle smoothly. When you take a diuretic or ACE inhibitor without food, it absorbs faster. Your blood pressure drops quickly. Your body detects that drop and releases compensatory hormones to bring the pressure back up. It's called rebound hypertension. So instead of smooth reduction, you get a roller coaster. Drop, spike, and every time your pressure spikes back up, you're stressing those stiffened arteries again. This is especially dangerous for people over 65 because the sudden drop in pressure when the medication kicks in can cause dizziness, falls, or even fainting. I've seen patients fracture hips because they stood up too fast after taking their morning medication on an empty stomach. Here's the age-related risk. After 60, your baroreceptors don't work as well. Those are the sensors in your arteries that detect pressure changes and tell your heart to speed up or slow down to compensate. When they're sluggish, your body can't react fast enough to prevent dizziness during a rapid pressure drop. A 30-year-old taking the same medication on an empty stomach might feel fine. A 70-year-old might end up on the floor. And here's the real tragedy. Most people never connect the dizziness to the medication timing. They just think they're getting old and unsteady. So, they accept it. They hold on to furniture when they walk. They avoid getting up quickly. But the solution isn't to accept instability. The solution is to take your medication with breakfast, not after breakfast, with it. The food slows absorption just enough to prevent that rapid drop while still allowing the medication to do its job. I had a patient named Robert who'd been taking his lisinopril with water at 6:30 a.m. for 8 years. He was dizzy almost every morning until about 10. He thought it was normal. I switched him to taking the same dose with his oatmeal. The dizziness stopped within 4 days. Same medication, same dose, different timing. Write this down. If you're taking blood pressure medication in the morning, take it with food. Not just water, food. And if your doctor prescribed it to be taken on an empty stomach specifically, that's different. Ask. But for most seniors on standard BP meds, food improves both safety and effectiveness. Let me ask you something before we go further. How many glasses of water do you drink first thing in the morning? Health advice says you should drink water immediately after waking. But if you have high blood pressure and you're over 60, drinking a large volume quickly on an empty stomach can cause water-induced blood pressure drop. When you drink significant water quickly, it dilutes the sodium concentration in your blood temporarily. Your body detects that dilution and responds by relaxing your blood vessels. That relaxation causes a pressure drop. In young people, it's mild. In older adults with stiff arteries, it can cause significant dizziness or fainting. When you dump 16 ounces of water into your stomach in 2 minutes, that water gets absorbed rapidly and temporarily lowers particle concentration. Your brain signals your blood vessels to dilate. In arteries that can't flex properly, that dilation creates instability. Blood pressure drops. You stand up. Gravity pulls blood into your legs. You feel lightheaded. Some people pass out. I've had 3 patients in the last year who fell in their bathroom within 10 minutes of drinking a large glass of water on an empty stomach first thing. All 3 had controlled hypertension. None connected the water to the fall until I explained the physiology. The fix here is simple. Don't chug water on an empty stomach. Sip it slowly over 15 to 20 minutes. Or better yet, drink it with food. A small breakfast, even just a banana. The food slows the absorption of the water and prevents that rapid dilution effect. Your body still gets the hydration, but it doesn't get the destabilizing osmotic shock. If you wake up genuinely thirsty and need water immediately, fine. Drink 6 to 8 ounces slowly, not 16, not 20, and definitely not all at once. Hydration is important, but the timing and the speed matter more than most people realize, especially after 60. Now, I need you to hear this clearly, because this is where the most preventable damage happens. The 4th morning habit is skipping breakfast entirely. Intermittent fasting is popular right now, and for some people it works. But for seniors with high blood pressure, skipping breakfast creates problems most fasting advocates don't talk about. When you don't eat in the morning, your body interprets that as a stress signal. It responds by releasing cortisol and adrenaline to mobilize stored energy. That's the same hormonal surge that happens when you're frightened. And both hormones raise blood pressure by constricting blood vessels. If you're 35 and your arteries are flexible, your body handles it. But if you're 67 and your arteries are stiff, that fasting response can push your pressure up 10 to 15 points for hours. There's also a blood sugar component. When you skip breakfast, your blood sugar drops. Your liver releases stored glucose. But that release is triggered by stress hormones, cortisol and glucagon. Both also raise blood pressure. So now you've got low blood sugar driving a hormonal response that's spiking your pressure. And here's the part that makes this particularly dangerous for people over 60. That blood pressure spike happens during the same morning hours when your cardiovascular system is already most vulnerable. Between 6 a.m. and noon, your blood is naturally thicker and stickier. Your platelets are more likely to clump. Your arteries are stiffer because cortisol peaks in the morning. All of that combines to make mornings the highest risk time for heart attacks and strokes. And if you skip breakfast and add a fasting-induced pressure spike on top of that baseline risk, you're compounding danger during the most dangerous hours of the day. I had a patient named Linda who started intermittent fasting after reading about it online. She was 64. She stopped eating breakfast and didn't eat her first meal until 1 p.m. Within 2 months, her morning blood pressure readings were consistently 15 points higher than they'd been before she started fasting. She couldn't figure out why. Her medication hadn't changed. Her activity level hadn't changed. But her body was interpreting the morning fast as chronic stress. I told her to add back a small breakfast. Not a huge meal, just eggs and a slice of toast. Within 10 days, her morning readings dropped back to her previous baseline. Her evening readings stayed the same. The only variable was morning food. That's how significant the fasting-induced stress response can be. The fix is straightforward. Eat something in the morning. It doesn't have to be a large meal. A small amount of protein and fat is enough to signal your body that it's not in fasting mode. That signal shuts off the stress hormone cascade and stabilizes your blood pressure during the hours when you need stability most. And here's the last one. This one is the hardest to talk about because it involves something a lot of people use to feel productive and sharp in the morning. Energy drinks or pre-workout supplements. I know some of you are thinking that's not you. You don't do that stuff. But stay with me, because this also includes those little flavored water enhancers with added caffeine and B vitamins that a lot of seniors use because they think they're harmless. They're not. Most of these products contain not just caffeine, but a combination of stimulants. Caffeine plus taurine plus guarana plus green tea extract. Each one individually might be manageable. But together, they create a synergistic effect that hits your cardiovascular system like a freight train. And for someone over 60 with compromised arterial flexibility, that combination can spike blood pressure 20 to 30 points within 30 minutes. I'm not exaggerating. I've measured it. Here's the mechanism. Taurine increases calcium release in your heart muscle, which makes your heart contract harder. Guarana is just another form of caffeine, so now you're getting a double dose of the same stimulant. Green tea extract contains compounds that inhibit the enzyme that breaks down norepinephrine, which means your body stays in fight or flight mode longer than it normally would. All of that happening simultaneously creates a perfect storm of vasoconstriction, increased heart rate, and elevated cardiac output. Your heart is pumping harder, your vessels are tighter, and your pressure skyrockets. For someone in their 20s with elastic arteries and robust compensatory mechanisms, the body handles it. The pressure spikes, then comes back down. But for someone over 60, that spike can trigger arrhythmias, angina, or even acute coronary events. It is never too late to stop using these products if you currently rely on them. And I understand the appeal. You want to feel energized. You want to start your day strong. But there are safer ways to achieve that without slamming your cardiovascular system with a chemical cocktail it can't process efficiently anymore. The fix here is complete elimination, not moderation, elimination. If you're over 60 and you have high blood pressure, you should not be using energy drinks or stimulant-based supplements in the morning. Period. If you need an energy boost, get it from food. A balanced breakfast with protein and complex carbs will give you sustained energy without the cardiovascular assault. If you need caffeine, have 1 cup of coffee with food, not an energy drink with 4 different stimulants. Your heart will thank you, your blood pressure will stabilize, and you'll still feel alert, just not at the cost of your arterial health. I need to tell you something. I've been in operating rooms for more than 2 decades. I've stood across from families in waiting rooms and explained what I found when I opened their loved one's chest. And the hardest conversations I've ever had weren't about rare diseases or genetic conditions. They were about preventable damage. Damage from habits that seemed harmless. Morning coffee on an empty stomach. Skipping breakfast to lose weight. Taking medication without food because nobody said it mattered. Energy drinks that promised clarity and delivered hypertension. These aren't mysterious causes. They're not exotic. They're ordinary. And that's what makes them so insidious. Because when something is ordinary, we don't question it. We assume it's safe. We assume someone would have warned us if it wasn't. But here's the truth. There aren't enough minutes in a standard cardiology appointment to go through every single habit that might be quietly sabotaging your numbers. Your doctor isn't withholding this information. They just don't have time to cover it. That's why I'm here. That's why I make these videos. Because someone needs to take the time. And if it helps even one person avoid the operating table, it's worth it. Let me tell you what happened with Margaret, the woman I mentioned at the beginning. She made the changes. She started eating a small breakfast before her coffee. She took her medication with her oatmeal instead of just water. She stopped chugging 16 ounces of water on an empty stomach and sipped it slowly with food instead. She didn't skip meals anymore. And she eliminated the energy-boosting water enhancer she'd been adding to her morning routine. Within 6 weeks, her systolic blood pressure dropped from an average of 148 in the morning to 132. Her cardiologist reduced her medication from 2 pills to 1. She told me the most frustrating part wasn't the effort it took to make the changes. It was how simple they were. She said, and I'm quoting her directly, "Why didn't anyone tell me this sooner? I've been on medication for 3 years. All I needed to do was eat breakfast and time things differently." That question has stayed with me. Because she's right. This isn't complicated, but it requires someone to explain it. And most people never get that explanation. So here's your summary. 5 things to change starting tonight. 1. Stop drinking coffee on an empty stomach. Eat something first, protein or fat. Wait 20 minutes, then have your coffee. 2. Take your blood pressure medication with food, not just water. It improves safety and effectiveness. 3. Don't chug large amounts of water on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. Sip it slowly with food to avoid osmotic shock. 4. Eat breakfast, even if you've been experimenting with intermittent fasting. A small meal is enough to shut off the stress hormone cascade that spikes your pressure during the most dangerous hours of the day. 5. Eliminate energy drinks and stimulant-based supplements entirely if you're over 60. They create a cardiovascular assault your aging arteries can't handle safely. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these 5 habits have you been doing without realizing the impact on your blood pressure? Leave a comment and let me know. I read every single one. And if you found this helpful, do me a favor. Share it with someone you care about who's managing high blood pressure. They might not know this information exists. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. I release a new video every week breaking down the things your doctor doesn't have time to explain in a 15-minute appointment. Your heart has been working for you every single minute of every day since before you were born. It deserves the best information you can give it. One last thing. Everything I've shared today is based on peer-reviewed research and 28 years of clinical experience. But I'm not your doctor. I don't know your specific medical history, or what medications you're taking, or what other conditions you're managing. So before you make any changes, talk to your healthcare provider. Show them this video if it helps. Ask them whether these adjustments make sense for your situation. I'm here to give you information. Your doctor is there to give you personalized care. Both matter. Use both. And if your doctor dismisses these concerns without explanation, it might be worth getting a second opinion. You deserve a physician who takes the time to address your questions seriously. It is never too late to take control of the habits that affect your health. Start tomorrow morning. Your blood pressure will notice the difference.